Okay, we have some big movement going on in the Russia-Ukraine war, as well as Russia pushing back and sending warships and submarines off the coast of Florida. To help me understand the Russia-Ukraine war, what's going on, I have former CIA Larry Johnson. Larry, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So right now, a warship capable of firing hypersonic missiles and nuclear missiles has moved from Russia to Cuba. It feels like deja vu, a mini Cuba Missile crisis, except for I think the tension and the situation is different. But should we be worried? Are these just wartime exercises? Is Putin letting the United States know, if you're going to mess with us, we're going to mess with you back?
Oh yeah, no, he's said it very clearly, as has Foreign Minister Lavrov and Deputy Foreign Minister Rybkov. I've met and conversed with Rybkov. These guys are dead ass serious. The Americans need to wake up. We are in such a world of delusion. We're lying to ourselves. We're ignoring the provocations that we are engaged in overseas. We have been supplying weapons to the Ukrainians that they're using to kill Russians inside of Russia. And we're going, oh, but Russia, okay, flip it then. If Russia was providing the Mexicans with weapons that were killing Americans, do you think we would give a damn? Absolutely. We would view that as an act of war. So here we are in this, this Alice in Wonderland world that we've created. And I mean, what do you suspect from a society that embraces transgenderism, that says men can have babies and men can nurse babies, that there's no such thing as male and female? So, okay, we can take that delusion to the foreign policy front. Oh, Russia will let us poke them in the chest all we want, and we can kill their people, and they won't retaliate. Wrong. So, Russia's made it very clear. Okay, they're going to put those ships right there. We've already put missiles in Romania and Poland that are pointed at Russia. We said we were putting them there to prevent rocket attacks, missile attacks from Iran. I mean, what a load of crap that is. So it's just, we're intent on trying to destroy Russia. And it's going to destroy us in the process.
Okay, yeah, that was my thinking. Was Putin is saying, listen, let me give you a taste of your own medicine. If you're going to put war machines, war weapons that can hit, St. Petersburg or Moscow, we're going to put some warships and some missiles off of your coast and see how you guys feel. I specifically read about one of Russia's nuclear subs off the coast of Florida. I'm not sure if that is just accompanying the warship to Cuba or if it's there to, put the Navy on alert. What are your thoughts on that?
No, this is more, I'd call it politicking by the Biden administration. Both the United States and Russia have submarines off the coast of each country. Okay, and it's been going on for years. So this is not new. This is, let's call it business as usual. What is new is sending those ships, the surface vessels, into Cuba as a show of force. Okay. And it's one of those things that we've become so accustomed to bossing the rest of the world around that now all of a sudden we're getting pushed back and we don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me nervous to read that, that this warship has been retrofit to hold their new hypersonic missiles, right. That this is a warship that can carry a tactical nuke, that the submarine is a nuclear submarine. Like these things make me nervous, getting close. And at the same time, I don't want to let my fear get the best of me. But at the same time, like, they're letting us know we can put weapons right in your backyard and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, well, look, the United States has lived with the luxury of being able to attack other countries for more than 70 years, and we've never had to worry about it, a threat back at us, apart from the Cuban Missile Crisis in '62, because we've got the ocean, and then we got Mexico to the south and Canada to the north as buffers. So, we go to Iraq, kill a bunch of Iraqis twice. We can go to Afghanistan, kill Afghanis for 20 years. Go to Syria, kill Syrians. Go to Libya, kill Libyans. Go to Somalia, kill Somalians. I mean, we've got a pretty bloody list of people that we keep going out and killing, and none of these countries have the ability to come back and attack us here, to bring war to us at home. The last time we really had war at home was during the Civil War, and that left a scar. However, the survivors, the descendants of people whose relatives fought in that Civil War, we're a minority. We're an absolute minority anymore in this country. The people that have immigrated since then, they have no memory of it. They didn't pay any price in blood. And I always maintain that when you pay for something, when you're a financial guy, you know what investment is. If somebody doesn't have some skin in the game, they don't take the investment seriously. But whereas if they give you $1 million and say, hey, invest this, they're going to be on you. They're invested in it. That's our problem. We've not suffered in all of our war adventures any significant casualties. World War II, yeah, that's an iconic thing for Americans. But the fact of the matter is this: when you total up all of the casualties that the United States suffered in terms of killed in action in North Africa, in Europe, and in the Pacific, total casualties, 450,000. Well, when you divide that by the population of America at the time, that means we basically had, out of every 100 Americans, 20% of one American suffered casualties. Okay?
Mm.
Russia, by contrast, take another 100 people. 16 of every 100 Russians died in that war. Do the same for China. China suffered enormous casualties as well. That's sort of why both, if you will, Russia and China are not very keen on overseas adventures getting involved with war. Whereas the United States is, hey, we lost 58,000 in Vietnam. We built a memorial wall. People go down and cry. It's nothing. 58,000 over 15 years. We lose that many in a year in traffic accidents. Right now, you got twice that many people dying in 1 year from fentanyl. We don't care about that. We don't, so it's like, it was terrible tragedy for those people who died in that conflict. But average American didn't affect their bottom line one single bit. And that's part of our problem. We don't have any skin in this game when it comes to war. If nothing, we make money off of it. If you own stock in Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Raytheon, BAE Systems, life's pretty good. The returns are coming back. So it is, I don't mean to be so cynical about this, but somebody needs to slap us in the face to wake us up out of this fantasy dream that we have.
Well, the number one people that invest in the military-industrial complex are members of Congress. And so it's like this terrible cycle of like, hey, I'm going to invest here, and then we're going to have war, and I'm going to make a lot of money, and it's this really toxic cycle. Speaking of toxic warmongers, there's this news saying, they said the quiet part out loud. We have Lindsay Graham, Senator Lindsay Graham, said a few things that are concerning to me. When asked about Ukraine, Senator Graham spent more time talking about how the United States needs to protect Ukraine's minerals, resources, and oil from Russia than he did talk about protecting their people. What
Right.
are your thoughts on this? I mean, is this whole thing come down to money to the war machine in America and protecting the resources and the oil of Ukraine?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's why BlackRock went in and cut a deal with the Ukrainians to basically own like 40-50% of the country. So before the special military operation started, Russia was the number one country in the world in terms of natural resources: oil, gas, uranium, nickel, gold, just run down the list, the rare earth minerals, coal. Uh, Ukraine, if I recall, was like number 4 or number 5. It's quite significant. Now, the difference was prior to the start of the special military operation in February 2022, the Russian economy was sound, it was growing. You did not have this problem with rampant corruption. And Russia was, already the 5th largest economy in the world in terms of purchasing power parity in 2022. It's now number 4. But at the same time, here is Ukraine with this abundance of natural resources. They were the poorest country in Europe. Why? The corruption, Western oligarchs, people like the Bidens going in, cutting sweetheart deals. Mitt Romney, another one, his family was invested in Ukraine. So they're basically raping Ukraine of its resources. We are like, you remember that movie Independence Day when the aliens surrounded Earth and they were coming in like locusts? That's what we are. That's what the United States has become with these other countries. We're like these ravenous locusts that have to go in and consume and take. Because the other thing that's going on in Ukraine, human trafficking, organs that are being harvested from wounded soldiers and sold on the black market, children being put into pedophilia and enslaved. We're backing that. We're enabling that. And then just yesterday, the State Department said, oh, Azov, they're not Nazis. Just because they have swastikas, just because they read Mein Kampf, just because they sing Nazi songs, they're not Nazis. I mean, good God.
Yeah. That actually caught me off guard. I mean, this was 2 years ago when I learned how many Nazis were still in Ukraine, but all this time later, they still pretend like they're not there.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, Zelensky's Jewish. He wouldn't allow Nazis. Well, he didn't have control of his own country.
Right.
So, okay. So, but you bring up a really good point. Like I was focusing on the military industrial complex, but you have people like Lindsey Graham and many others in Congress that are most likely also protecting the interest of BlackRock, who is now becoming a huge owner of Ukraine.
Now, BlackRock is in some trouble. They're heavily invested in Ukraine, and that investment's going down the toilet. Russia's not given back the 5 oblasts that it has taken control of. And it's going to take control of more. It will get control of Odessa. So essentially, Ukraine, what we knew will no longer exist. Everything to the east of the Dnieper will be under Russian control.
And Odessa, I don't have a map in front of me. That is a port city in the south, right?
Yeah, it's down south.
Okay.
It sits on the Black Sea.
So then they can control Odessa and Crimea right there on the Black Sea. Wow, right. That's not good for Ukraine. I don't know why they continue to do this other than follow the money, right? You follow the money. Senator Graham, the other thing he said that was concerning to me is he said he's very concerned about Senator Tommy Tuberville, who isn't fully bought into the Russia-Ukraine war. He says Tuberville doesn't believe that Putin wants to take over Europe. I mean, I lean with Tommy Tuberville. I don't think that Putin wants to take over Europe, but I do believe he wanted Ukraine to be a buffer. I do believe he didn't want NATO to come any further to the east. What are your thoughts?
Hey, Tuberville had a winning record when he's the football coach. So, I go with the winning record. No, Tuberville's absolutely right. Show me one country that So they say, okay, Russia's invaded Ukraine. Well, okay, yeah, that's actually not the real story. The real story is we've been conducting military exercises in Ukraine since at least 2008, which represented a direct threat to Russia. And Russia finally said, okay, enough. Russia told us repeatedly, keep Ukraine out of NATO. We kept saying, no, we're going to bring him into NATO. Russia said, enough. So apart from that, Russia hasn't been out invading other countries. The only country outside of Russia where Russia is carrying out military operations is in the country of Syria, and that was at the direct invitation of the government of Syria. Come help us because these Western nations are backing an insurgency that's trying to overthrow us. And when Russia did that, that really infuriated the West because the West was counting on taking out Syria, and they failed. So Tuberville is exactly right. Lindsey Graham is just, I view him as a degenerate, a moral degenerate. He has no problems about killing people. He has no problems about inflicting pain and suffering on foreigners. And what we keep forgetting about Ukraine. So look, Hunter Biden gets on the board of Burisma, having no experience. And then they bring on Cofer Black. People just aren't focusing on Cofer. Cofer was a senior CIA officer, chief of station in Sudan when they captured Carlos the Jackal. He then went on to be head of the Counterterrorism Center when 9/11 happened. He then went down to State Department, was the head of my old office, the office of, it was then called the Coordinator for Counterterrorism. Comes out of there, and he gets a sweetheart appointment to a bank in the Baltics, and gets on the board of Burisma. And then there are credible allegations. In fact, not allegations. That bank in the Baltics that he was on the board of, it got sanctioned for terrorism finance. Now, the reason they brought him on was to prevent terrorism finance. So I find that, isn't that interesting? Terrorism finance going on while the guy that used to head up U.S. counterterrorism at CIA gets caught. And Burisma was reportedly moving money to terrorist groups. Coincidence? I don't know. I find it odd. Nobody looks at that. So I said, there's so much behind this, and we haven't even talked about the biological labs that were being funded by DOD in Ukraine. Not one or two, multiple labs that were doing, weapons research on biological agents.
Would these be equivalent to like Wuhan labs, but in Ukraine?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So they're messing around with diseases, making biological war machines, in the form of viruses, then making a vaccine to counter that. I've heard RFK Jr. talk a little bit about this, but I think it's much bigger than most Americans would realize. The thing that cracks me up about Lindsey Graham is if you put it in simpler terms, he's basically saying, we can't get Senator Tuberville to drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
We all have to drink the Kool-Aid or else we don't all believe the same thing. I feel like that is what is happening. But if this war is just now over resources and protecting BlackRock, that's dangerous, because they don't care about the cost of human life. They only care about return on investment and protecting their bottom line.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And that's why I say the American people need to listen to what Putin and Foreign Minister Lavrov and Deputy Foreign Minister Repkov and the head of the National Security Council, basically, Medvedev, who was president at one point. These guys aren't making idle threats. They've reached a point that they now recognize that they are at war with the United States. It's an undeclared war, but the United States, as far as they're concerned, is committed to destroying Russia. That's how they view it. So you can imagine how you would react if you came to believe that my intent in life was to destroy you and your family. You wouldn't sit back and go, oh, that Larry Johnson, you take measures to protect yourself. You take measures to stop me. That's exactly what Russia's going to do and what Russia is doing.
Yeah, if I thought that Russia was at war with me, the first thing I might do is put some war machines in their backyard, like Cuba. So,
Yep.
I mean, you can see the logical step of what they are trying to do. Speaking of Russia, our colleague Scott Ritter had his passport confiscated as he was flying. He was preparing to fly to Russia, I believe, as speaking at an event or something like that. Why do you think the government took his passport?
Well, first, he was going to attend the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, which I was also attending there. Scott had some legal issues 20 years ago that led to a jail sentence, time in prison. So when he came out, and because of his conviction, when he applied for a passport, U.S. State Department was supposed to issue a passport with some identifying information in there, showing that he had, he was had a conviction for that particular charge. Well, they issued the passport more than 2 years ago. They didn't put it in, and Scott has to notify state 30 days in advance every time he travels outside the country because of that legal status. So he notified him he was headed to St. Petersburg. Well, these guys knew right off the bat that there was a problem with the passport. And all they had to do was say, Mr. Ritter, we're sorry, we issued you a mistaken passport. We need to issue you a corrected version. Could have taken care of it beforehand. That's not what they did. They waited till he's on the plane to seize the passport, make a big deal. And what a bunch of dummies these guys are. Blinken and that crowd, they are retarded, because what they did is they elevated Scott's profile in a way that he was already pretty well known around the world, but now he became sort of a cause celeb. And it focused attention on the abuses by the Biden administration, and gave Scott a lot more recognition that he would have received otherwise if they just left him alone, ignored him, and let him attend the conference.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, they're trying to like snuff him out, and instead they blew this ember into a bigger fire.
Yeah.
And brought even more attention to somebody who's saying, wait a minute, the war machine is out of control. Speaking of the war machine getting out of control, I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this. On the one hand, you have many European countries that are ramping up to go to war with Russia. At the same time, many of those countries are having their governments replaced with a more conservative government that doesn't want to go to war. Is this the pendulum trying to swing towards war, and America, or not America, citizens trying to push it back to peace?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and let's be clear, when we talk about countries like France ramping up, or Britain ramping up, they don't have a lot to ramp with, okay? I mean, France is sent some soldiers to do training. And as I've said before, train them in what? How to surrender? I mean, the last war that the French were involved in, that was, quote, a victory, was the end of World War II. And they were tailing along on the coattails of the Brits and the Americans. So these countries like Germany, France, Britain, that are making all these bellicose statements and threats, they don't actually have the number of people in the military or the actual equipment to send. Now, the French are supposedly trying to maintain some of the artillery pieces in Ukraine. But at the same time, as you correctly noted, the average person in the street is going, we don't want to go to war with Russia. What? No. And it is, these countries are, NATO is in the process of dissolving. It just doesn't realize that it's dead. And why do I say that? Because just this last week, Turkey said, hey, we want to join BRICS. And BRICS is going, okay, come on in. Now, Turkey's been trying for 25 years to get into the EU. And the EU keeps coming up with a new excuse not to have them. You know, it's basically like the old days when the black guy wanted to join the all-white country club. Yeah, sorry, they never find a way to let him in. That's what they've done to Turkey. Complete disrespect. And here's Turkey, its role in NATO. It's got the second largest army in NATO after the United States. And it's already said, hey, you go into war with Russia, count us out. We're out. And what Putin is doing very smartly, using Lavrov and others, is they are cultivating closer relationships with both Turkey and Iran. And it's noteworthy that Turkey and Iran themselves are negotiating to have a closer working relationship. The United States is going to be completely shut out in the Middle East. And so what you're seeing is Europe is making itself increasingly irrelevant. The fact that Russia now, along with China, India, and then the United States, those four countries represent the top four economies in the world in terms of gross domestic product, measured by purchasing power parity. And essentially that just means with your local currency, what can you buy? How good of a standard of living can you have? Russia has surpassed Germany. Russia has surpassed Japan. And Russia is continuing to grow from an economic standpoint.
They're also making babies.
Yeah, and
right?
they're encouraging people to come there, which you've had several families, American, Australian, Canadian, which have six or more children, who have moved there because they see Russia as family friendly. You know, I'm watching. And you're trying to explain to the Russians how crazy we are in this country. You know, June's Gay Pride Month. Oh, we're going to be gay, gay. And all this obsession with homosexuality, the obsession with drag queens. You know, big, fat, ugly guys dressed up as women, pretending to be women, reading sexualized stories to children. I mean, the Russians really, they look at you like you've landed from a planet, from Mars, and they don't know even what to think about it. And then all the transgender nonsense. I mean, we're really at a point in this country where we need to stand up and push back both against the transgender and the gay movements, the LGBTQ. Got to push back because it's not healthy. It's not going to promote families. And that's what they're promoting in Russia. In fact, most countries in the world promote and believe in traditional families, not this, freak show that we're putting on here in the United States. And that's one of the reasons that these countries are flocking to Russia and to China and eschewing a relationship with us. You saw the other day, the Saudis said, hey, petrodollar, goodbye, we're not using that anymore. What? That's been our bread and butter now for 50 years.
Yeah.
That's gone. Gone. And again, our leaders haven't thought through the economic implications of that for life here in America.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always wondered why the LGBTQ 2SA plus community gets a full month, but mothers only get 1 day. That something seems a little backwards there.
Yeah.
Okay, two final questions. I really appreciate you coming on. I read from our colleague Colonel Douglas McGregor. He says Biden is moving us closer to war with Russia each day. Is that because we're not doing any diplomacy and we're trying to use the might of NATO and the U.S. military and the military industrial complex to make war machines? Or why do you think Colonel McGregor is saying that?
Oh, it's exactly what you said. There's no diplomacy. I heard that directly from the deputy foreign minister of Russia. That he says, "Who do we talk to, and what do we talk about?" Because the United States has made it very clear that we have nothing to discuss with the Russians other than they got to get out of Ukraine and let us take over Ukraine. It's not going to happen. The attitude in the West, our policies become one of three things. You either do what we want, or we're going to put economic sanctions on you, or we'll go to war with you, or we'll run a covert action program like a color revolution to subvert your government. That's what we do. Notice, though, that the rest of the world, and that's one of the messages I came away with from St. Petersburg, with 136 other countries there, they are fed up with the United States and its bullying. They are sick and tired of the United States thinking it has the right to dictate, the laws that they have and what they do and the relationships they have with other countries. Remember, it was just about a month ago, 2 months ago, that Angola passed a law basically banning homosexuality because they wanted to promote families, heterosexual families. The United States sanctioned them. How dare you? Angola basically said, Uncle Sam, you can go shove it where the sun doesn't shine. You're not going to tell us how we're going to raise our families and our children. You don't get to do that. In fact, look at your own society. Look in the mirror. Fix your own problems before you go out and lecture the rest of the world. So what McGregor is talking about is the decisions Biden is taking. They believe that the Russians are weak and cowardly, and accordingly that the United States can do whatever it wants to do, and there will not be any consequences. Based upon my experience, my conversations, my knowledge, that's one of the stupidest things the Biden administration has ever done, because it is endangering the people of America.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to Colonel McGregor, I remember him telling me, I don't know if it was recorded or off recording, but it's nothing secret. He just said, that the United States used to be well known for its diplomatic abilities, and now Congress hides behind the U.S. military. Do you know, is the Biden administration having any communication with Putin? And also in terms of France, I know Emmanuel Macron, he used to go to Russia and try to reason with Putin. And now I just wonder if maybe NATO has pressured him to not do diplomacy anymore. Any thoughts on that?
Well, Macron shot himself in the foot in terms of trying to do diplomacy with the Russians. They saw him as a duplicitous little twerp that he is. That he would say one thing, do the opposite, and then became very bellicose and talked about sending, not just talking about it, but sending French troops into Ukraine. On the diplomatic front for the United States, it's equally pathetic. We're not the one who's probably the most engaged is Bill Burns, the CIA director. I don't think he's had any direct contact with Putin. Because the Putin and his cabinet's view is, what is there to talk about? Until the United States comes in with a concrete proposal, and the proposal has to be this: we're no longer going to push to bring Ukraine into NATO. Number one, we will withdraw and stop doing military exercises on your border. Number two. Okay, now we have something to talk about. But until they do that, I think Burns has been in contact with his Russian counterpart and trying to deconflict some things. He may even have had contact with Lavrov because Burns served as ambassador to Moscow back in 2008. So he does have some contacts and can deal with them. But apart from that, no communication.
Okay. Another thing that I wanted to try to understand is, and I have Colonel McGregor coming on next week, but he's posted on Twitter to pay attention to General Mark Milley's connection to the January 6th Capitol breach. I guess Milley was telling China, hey, if Trump makes any kind of moves, I'll let you know ahead of time. Behind the scenes, Mark Milley was trying to strip the commander-in-chief of any military authority, any National Guard authority, undermining him. And then now, just in the last few days, he was having secret communications with Susan Rice, who was under President Obama. Anything to add to that? It's all very fresh, so I don't fully understand it all.
Yeah, Milley's a traitor. I mean, he betrayed his oath as an officer, and he was simply, acting like any third world bananaed general that tries to overthrow an elected government. He violated the Constitution. He should be court-martialed, prosecuted, and thrown in jail, in my view. So he was complicit in all of this because they should have, there should have been a much stronger response, and we've already seen that. Excuse me for a second. Come on here. Sorry.
It's okay.
We've already seen that Nancy Pelosi was doing everything in her power not to accept the President Trump's offer to come into to bring the National Guard in. So she was doing everything. This was a setup. This was a total, complete setup.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot more connection to Nancy Pelosi and Mark Milley than we've been told in the last 3 years. And I look forward to the truth making its way to the surface like it always wants to do. Larry, thank you so much for coming on, spending time with us, helping us understand. If people want to follow you, is sonar21.com still the best place?
That's the best place, sonar21.com. Thanks.
Okay. I will make sure to put that. Thank you again. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Steve.